Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunshine Coast regular board meeting for Thursday, June 10th, 2021. I would like to call us to order, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is located on the territory of the Shishalt and Squamish Nations. As this is our first board meeting since the recent discovery of 215 children at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, I'd like to also acknowledge the devastation done to First Nations cultures through the residential school system, and to encourage any members of the public listening in, as well as my fellow directors, to take a moment today to contemplate how they can participate meaningfully in reconciliation. We do have an agenda in front of us today, but before we do that, I do need a vice chair for the meeting, and Director McMahon has volunteered herself, so I would like a motion to appoint Director McMahon as vice chair for this meeting, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. We do have an amended agenda in front of us today. Some stuff from earlier today has come on to the board meeting now. Directors, is there anything else you would like to add or change on our agenda before we adopt it? And I see no hands, so I will look for a mover for our amended agenda. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much. May I also have a motion to receive all minutes, reports, and delegation materials? Moved. And I'll second that. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. So looking at the minutes from our regular board meeting of May 27th, 2021, is there anything in there that needs to be actioned? We do have one piece of unfinished business, AAC committee member vacancies. Director McMahon?
Yes. I would like to move that the AAC agenda for their next meeting include a discussion of the future of the AAC.
Okay. And I have a seconder for that. Any other?
Sorry, I don't know if I can actually second that. I'm not sure. You got another seconder?
I've got other seconders, but I will just double check with the corporate officer. Voting for this particular recommendation would be?
Rural directors only.
Thank you. Any other comments from my directors, rural or otherwise? I don't see any hands, so I will call the question. Rural directors, all those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Not seeing any other hands up from other business from the regular board meeting minutes, we will move into Annex C, which is our delegation from Kylie Hutchinson and Tim Howard, Transportation Choices Sunshine Coast. So, IT has beaten me to promoting them, so thank you, IT.
Thank you, everybody. And I will just give me a second to share my screen. All right, great. Thank you. So today I'm going to be talking to you about some tips for attracting cycle tourists to the Sunshine Coast. This is actually a version of a talk that I gave about a month ago to hospitality establishments on the Sunshine Coast on behalf of the Sunshine Coast Tourism and Destination BC. So my name is Kylie Hutchinson, and I am a board member with Transportation Choices Sunshine Coast. And I'm also a cycle tourist. I have many years of experience cycling all around the world. So today, in the 10 minutes that I have, I'm going to talk very briefly about the business case for cycle tourism, and then I will focus on some tips directed towards hospitality establishments for attracting cyclists. So cycling on the Sunshine Coast is already a known destination. It's on the map, as evident in this article from Explore Magazine 2016. People do know about Sunshine Coast as a cycling destination. And the first research that I want to refer to is Tourism BC from 2007, who noted that cyclists are an important tourism market for British Columbia, and cycle tourists tend to be more educated and affluent than your typical cyclists. The same report found that in 2004, 2006, in that time, more than 250,000 mountain bike tourists alone came to BC from out of province. And again, this is a very affluent group of tourists. In 2015, Destination BC did another study of mountain bike tourism and noted the economic return that this brings to communities. And 2017, the Ontario Ministry of Tourism did a study where they found that cycle tourists spend more and stay longer than your average tourist. And finally, in 2015, the city of Victoria did a study where they found that cycle tourists spend an average of $990 per trip. So now I want to move into a very kind of fast-moving, almost like a Pechakucha presentation of tips specifically directed towards hotels, motels, restaurants, cafes, etc., around attracting cyclists. And obviously the first one is the condition of the roads. As a cycle tourist, this is one of the first things that we're going to be looking at when we decide whether or not we actually want to come and cycle somewhere. And TRAC has been, over the years, has been identifying critical areas requiring cycling infrastructure. And most recently, we've had the opportunity to provide some input to MOTI on some of these critical cycling gaps on the Sunshine Coast. So also, I don't know if people have noticed, but particularly over COVID, there are large groups of cycle packs that are now coming to the Sunshine Coast for day trips. And so they're groups that look like this. Their destination is Sechelt and back, or even Pender Harbor and back. And on this day trip, they will always involve some kind of stop at a restaurant or a cafe. So the more that an establishment is able to accommodate these groups, the more custom they're going to receive. Also, when a cyclist rolls into town and is looking for a place to stop and spend their money, their primary consideration is, where can I put my bike where I can see it? So they will choose a cafe based on, can they lean their bike up somewhere where they can actually keep an eye on it? The bikes are expensive, they're loaded with all of their gear, so they're less likely to lock them somewhere and then turn their backs on them. So when I'm traveling with a loaded bike, my preference is just to lean it against a wall somewhere. If there is a bike rack, I may use it, provided I can, there's space to put my bike in there. But a bike rack like this, I'll avoid like the plague, because with a fully loaded bike, I'm afraid of buckling my front tire. So any establishment that will refill a water bottle becomes a friend for life of a cycle tourist. And also, if we're visiting an Airbnb or a hotel or whatever, if there's actually cycle-specific directions, we really appreciate this. So take Marine Drive instead of the bypass. Make sure that you take Gibson's Way instead of going up School Road. Also, for a motel, we would always prefer to have the ground floor room if possible, so we don't have to schlep our gear up to the second floor. And the second thing that we are thinking about when we're looking for accommodation is, can we put our bikes in the room? We have expensive bikes. The last things we want to do is leave them outside locked up in a strange community overnight. So this will make or break our decision of where we want to stay for accommodation. If that's not available, if we're staying at an Airbnb, we would just love some secure parking, maybe in the garage or in the shed. It doesn't have to be fancy. If you clear space in your messy garage for us, we're just eternally grateful, because we just want our bike to be secure. And then as a last option, just having some covered parking. So as a proprietor, it's always great when you can point us in the direction of where we can get repairs and supplies in the local area. And it's also great when we're trying to decide where to stay, if there's information, cycling information, where are the local trails, or what are some of the day routes that we might cycle, will attract us to stay at that particular establishment. And it's always great too if a proprietor or a restaurant or cafe worker can tell us what are the off-highway options. That I've met people that have actually cycled the Sunshine Coast and didn't know about Lower Road, didn't know about Red Roofs Road, and we're always trying to get off of the highway. So TRAC has developed the Sunshine Coast Bike Route app, and this is an app that identifies scenic routes and hill grades and amenities like grocery stores, and also stops of interest like breweries or cideries. So it's great if your establishment could offer free maps or have them for sale, or maybe you put local maps on the walls. This is always attractive to cyclists. And if we're cyclists and we've ridden all the way from the ferry to Tewanek, It's really a very nice touch to put delivery menus in the rooms. And this is because by the time we get to Tewanek and we've had a shower, the last thing we want to do is get back on our bike and ride into Seashell for dinner. So being able to order is always appreciated. But the next morning, we're also going to be looking to our proprietor for information on where's the biggest, baddest, greasiest spoon breakfast that we can find in town on our way out of town. E-bike tourists are not that prevalent right now, but if they do come, all they need is just a simple wall plug for charging. So that's another kind of attraction. And there is discussion now of setting up some local e-bike charging stations up and down the coast. And I just want to say, and this is my personal opinion, that we generally only need one charger per community. An e-bike tourist would just need to get from community to community. It's not like electric car chargers. Residents who have their own e-bikes will not really need to be charging them. They have enough charge to get around town. So we do have water restrictions. So tourism proprietors need to be careful if mountain bikers want to be spraying down their bikes after a day on the trails. But one thing we really do appreciate in an establishment is being able to do our laundry. So as cycle tourists, we have to travel with minimal clothing. And so this is always appreciated. And cyclists and mountain bikers alike, at the end of the day, ripping up the trails, would love the chance to just sit around and tell stories. And so if you can offer some kind of common area, this doesn't have to be fancy, just some chairs and a fire pit in the backyard, or a couple of picnic tables is also appreciated. And I'll just note this cycle tourist as well. There are people who are cycling across the country or across the province and will mostly camp, but every once in a while want to stay in a B&B and get a warm shower. And so having a place to include these people is also makes the business attractive. And then as the Sunshine Coast gets more and more known as a cycling destination, of course, groups want to come. So those establishments that are able to accommodate groups are going to benefit then. So the last few tips that I want to share are just what we would consider little extras. So having basic bike tools available, things like a bike pump or even a complimentary bike lock. Bike locks are quite heavy and cycle tourists generally don't travel with them. So giving us one, if we come for a weekend, we just want to spend the Saturday cycling around, then a complimentary lock is appreciated. Maybe selling high energy snacks in your B&B or bike tubes. And again, if you're able to provide a shuttle service from the ferry to Tewanek or wherever you are, then that's going to attract more cycle tourists to your business as well. Sometimes it's raining, so by the time we do get to our motel or our B&B or whatever, we're soaked. So having a drying room is a really nice touch. And I just included this slide because Italy is well known for having a very wonderful network of bike hotels. And so people like me will spend time on this website and just absolutely drool at all of the perks and facilities that they offer to attract the cycling tourist. And Italy has become well known as a cycling destination for road cycling and mountain biking. So how do we make this happen? So Track's big dream is a ferry to ferry safe cycling route, something that would become well known. And our feeling is that if you build it, they will come, not just from locally, but provincially and nationally as well. And with that, I will just open it up to any questions that anybody might have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If we can get you to stop your screen share so I can see all my directors again. There we go. Thank you very much. Directors, any comments or questions for our delegation today? Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. The size of the groups and the accommodation at the region is available on the Sunshine Coast. Short-term rentals are typically or Airbnbs are supposed to be small, and groups can be large. So how well poised are we between the balance of hotels and motels and Airbnbs and these larger groups that can be accommodated, like more than 6 people? Any thoughts on that?
Are you up? Is this for me?
Yes, please.
I think the only thought that I have is that you're right. We could be quite quite well placed with the old Bella Beach Inn and et cetera. But it's a matter of letting people know that and advertising that on the website and consciously saying, you know, we are available for large cycling groups. I think that's kind of the message that we're trying to communicate to tourism businesses on the coast, is that this market is out there. We want this market to come to the coast, but you have to cater to them. And there's small things that you can do to do that.
All right, thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I figure that step number one with tourists is not killing them on our highway. So whatever we can do to continue to work with Modi to improve our roadsides is great. And thank you, TRAC, for your continued efforts in this line. We've got a long way to go, but we're working on it.
And just in comment of that, cyclists do talk. So somebody will come back from a weekend, and I'm sure you guys will see them on Fridays coming from the ferry, on Sundays going back to the ferry, and they get back to the city. How was your trip? They will talk about it. It's a network. They will be posting it on Twitter. There'll be conversations on Reddit. So people do talk about the conditions of the roads.
For sure. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I got a question for our presenter. Are you referring to both mountain biking tourism as well as what I call the roadside multi-use path bikers?
Yes, they're both. So some will drive to the coast with their bikes on a rack and then will spend the weekend using the Sunshine Coast trails. Others will cycle on the ferry and spend their time cycling on the roads of the coast. But they're both growing segments.
So you would like to see more of the off-road paths that would connect you, say, from ferry to ferry as well. That would be a good thing, huh?
Cyclists will if we're aware of an off-road path that is, you know, 1 or 2 days at least in length, then we will plan a holiday around it. So there's several popular ones in Quebec right now, and my family is literally planning, like, we're going to go and do it, because for 3 days we can cycle on an old rail trail in Quebec. That's attractive enough for us to get on a plane and go and do that.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. Director Beamish.
Yeah, Kylie, thank you for your presentation. And like Donna says, thank you also for all the input that TRAC has into our projects and other projects on the coast. Very valuable assistance. How is the Sunshine Coast viewed among the cycle community on a scale of 1 to 10? How do we rate these days? And what are some of the immediate things that we could do as local governments to move up that scale?
So the Sunshine Coast has everything. It has the views, it has the camping at appropriate spots. It has the link with the loop, so you can go all the way to Powell River and then back down in 3 or 4 days. So it has everything. It's the highway. The highway is the weak link. The highway is, you know, some people who are comfortable taking that kind of risk will do it. And you'll see, yeah, mostly when you look at the ones that you see on Fridays and Sundays, they're younger. They're in their 20s doing it. That is the weakest link.
And what about senior cycling? Is that becoming something?
So TRAC has heard many anecdotal stories of active seniors on the coast, and we all know that they're out there, who tell us, I would love to cycle more, but I just don't feel safe here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Directors, any other questions for our delegation or comments? Thank you for your presentation. We saw you at the District of Seashelt already, and well, Director Seegers and I did. And you're doing good work out there, and I can certainly, while I am not an active cyclist, I am trying to encourage my daughter to be an active cyclist. So I can certainly understand the concerns around highway shoulders and what have you. And, you know, there's no way that I would let my daughter bike between Seashelt and Gibsons right now, or in the near future. So anything we can do to improve that active transportation is good work to be done. So
Thank you, everybody.
thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thanks.
All right, moving into our reports, we've got item 5, Annex D, which is Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations numbers 1 through 7, 9, and 15 to 16 of May 27th, 2021. Directors, are there any of those you would like to pull to debate separately before we adopt? I did not hear anything from anybody prior to the meeting. And I don't see any hands up, so I will look for a motion to adopt those recommendations. Moved? Seconded. And to answer Director Seeger's question, that was one of the first things I did, was ask for a motion to receive reports and minutes and delegation materials. So I will call the question. All those in favor? All right, thank you very much. And moving into our amended agenda, we have item 5A, which is Infrastructure Services Committee recommendations numbers 3 through 7 and 9 through 10 of June 10th, earlier this morning. I would like to pull recommendation 7 for discussion and voting separately. But directors, are there any of those others that you would like to pull? And seeing no hands, I look for a motion to adopt recommendations 3 through 6 and 9 through 10 from the Infrastructure Services Committee meeting this morning. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much. So looking at recommendation 7, I wanted to pull this one because there were 3 of us opposed to it this morning. So I'm Director McMahon.
I'm just going to say, although I voted the other way, that perhaps we could ask staff or the back road bash people to keep an eye out and discover whether we start having a particular problem with ammonia fridges. Because if we do, then perhaps we should come back and reconsider in future.
Thank you, Director McMahon. I know that there will likely need to be some communications because, you know, it's recognized that the larger coils are the ammonia appliances, but whether the public knows that when they're loading their old fridge into the back of the truck to take it to the dump or not is going to be a completely different story. And they might be expecting to pay one fee, and when they get up there and find out that no, they're paying $80, it might be going somewhere else. So with those comments, I look for a motion to adopt recommendation 7. Moved. And do I have a seconder? I do have a seconder. Thank you very much. Call the question unless there's any other comments. All those in favor? Thank you. I'm opposed, but I don't need to have that recorded, so that is carried. Moving on to item 5B in our agenda, and our amended agenda, excuse me, which is the reconstruction of the pool facility fire sprinkler system award report. I know that we had some questions that we wanted to see if we could get some further information on here in the break. Director Seegers, did I see your hand up there? No? Okay.
Wrong button.
All right. Thank you. So would anybody from staff like to comment? I don't see any unfamiliar names here, so I assume we were unable to receive the original estimating engineers at this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. That is correct. Staff did speak with the engineer briefly, but he wasn't able to join us this afternoon.
All right. Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I was going to comment that one of the difficulties in making these decisions is, as far as I know, the estimate that's provided on page 23E does not include our internal staff time. Would that be true? So it's difficult for us to measure the impact internally on staff resources between the different options.
Jim Ho.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that would be true, and every case is different. I mean, sometimes we see when we put out tenders that there's 6 or 8 addendums or extra work that's needed. So it's difficult to estimate.
Thank you. Director Seegers.
Thank you. So one of the questions that came out this morning is what contributed to the extra cost? Do we have any idea? Can we lay anything out for the directors about where the cost came from?
Thank you. GM Hall.
Thank you, Chair. So as staff stated this morning, we do know that material costs are up and that the market is fully loaded with work. And we know that pricing is volatile. There is in such a market, we typically see contractors add a risk contingency to their pricing, knowing that between the time that they're writing a bid and the time that a project is awarded and they're buying supplies, prices could change. That could be a case here.
Okay, thank you. Director Ties.
So I just want to see if I understand this correctly. If we were to go out for another RFQ and see if we can get more than just one bid on this, first of all, I guess what are the chances of that us getting more than one quote? Secondly, what would be the implications regarding the I guess the seasonal closure and all that, and would the facility have to be closed a second time if that got delayed? And so I just want to wrap my head around the implications of saying, hey, let's see if we can get another quote here. Would that be something that would be very problematic, or is that something that can be done within the time frame?
GM Hall.
Thanks. So staff are careful to use the word problematic. There's none of these options are problems. They just involve trade-offs. So if the board's direction is to retender the project, then the timeline would be such that we are not completing a sprinkler replacement during the planned 2021 shutdown. Just that's based on an assumption, I guess, that that if we began tendering now, it's probably almost 6 weeks until we're in a position to make an award. We would need board direction to make that award based on the value as well, which if that falls before our September meeting, doesn't line up very well with the meeting schedule. So yes, we'd probably be looking at a different closure time. We have an extended closure planned for this year to accommodate this project. We have a number of relatively large capital projects going on in that window. We may not need the entire closure if this project isn't happening this year. But by the same token, we would be planning for the installation of an expanded fire alarm system. And at this point, staff are not sure whether that would require a closure or how long that would be. So yes, there is an impact in terms of the length and timing of closures based on the options suggested. Because staff's other comment would be, if we're thinking of retendering this anyway, which triggers the need to do fire alarm system work based on the information that we have presented in the report, then the question becomes when to retender it. Is it right now, or is it at a future time when market conditions might be different? Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, yeah, that challenge, if we retender it now, we might come in with a higher bid than we have in front of us now. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I think why we're all balking here is not, it's not a technical question. Obviously, if you just look at the technical considerations, option one is the best one. But the question is, how much money is too much? Our annual budget for recreation facilities is around $9 million. And this represents 13% of our annual budget for all 4 recreation facilities. It's a lot of money. If it was $2 million, would we say yes? If it was $5 million, well, at that point we'd say no. But here we are. We're wondering how much is too much, and what to do about it. Sorry, that's probably not entirely helpful, but I thought I'd point it out.
No, the comments are helpful, Director McMahon. I'm going to jump in real quick, and I look at the phasing approach, and there is, of course, an additional risk there extending the length of time for the work out. But looking at the phase 1 portion of the project for 2021, that falls within the budget that we've already approved. And yeah, phase 2 and phase 3 at this point would still be unfunded, but we are looking at a scope of work that fits within the budget that we set based on the information that we had available to us when we did the budgeting. Director Seegers?
So I'm just questioning the one line on page 23E where it says action must be taken to address building fire protection if the facility is to remain in operation. So what kind of time frame have we been given by the fire department? Like if we choose to go out and retender, if we go with the phased approach, do we also then need to tender for the additional fire protection equipment? And do we have to be closed while this is happening? What are the implications of all of these?
Jim Ho?
Thank you for the question. Staff have been working really closely with the fire department. They have been exceedingly helpful. They understand we are working on a time frame to take action on this in August, and have stated that if action is taken by August, they're comfortable with us working with them. In the meantime, staff have taken a number of actions to ensure that the facility remains safe and satisfy conditions put to us by the fire department. We haven't crossed the bridge of what happens if we do absolutely nothing, but the comment from the fire department is that something needs to happen for the facility to stay in operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't believe that doing nothing is the right answer here in any scenario, but Director Beamish.
Yeah, I'm just again looking at the option 2 and the phases. The consulting engineer has provided the options and the different phasing. Is the fire department aware of these, and would they support moving forward in the phased approach? And would that be enough to enable to the facility to remain open as the progress is made over the 3-year period?
Jim Ho?
Yes. So just to be absolutely clear on what option 2 is, option 2 is rather than doing the whole sprinkler system at once, do it in pieces, but at the same time, add additional fire protection equipment. So it takes the sprinkler project, moves it into chunks, which we would have to go out to tender, and may attract more attractive bids. That is a big question mark, and but incurs some overhead with a temporary fire alarm addition, and the overhead for that fire alarm equipment is estimated at about $130,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Beamish, do you have a follow-up?
No, it's we're caught between a hard.
Director Ties?
Well, considering that not only does it look like the overall cost might actually come in lower for the phased approach, but it also spreads out the hit over several years. I'd be willing to move option 2, and hopefully things will also prices will normalize as COVID somewhat recedes into the rearview mirror by that time.
Thank you, Director Ties. Looking at the recommendations within our staff report, I just want to ask our staff what recommendations you would like to see if we're moving forward with option 2. I guess it'll be that staff, retender the project based on option 2 and report back at a future meeting.
Yes, Chair. I think that would be adequate. I do want to add, and I also see our CFO has raised her hand, that approach, the approach of phasing it, would involve tendering the entire project on a new timeline, and so it still requires, and that's because we need a single contractor to undertake the whole project because the system is interconnected, and it's important for asset planning. It's important for the warranty, and so it may. So while I don't disagree with anything the director said a moment ago, the need to borrow, for example, for the project may come all at once. Thank you.
Thank you. CFO Pro?
Yes, thank you. GM kind of touched on it already, which is really the financing of option 2 would have to be reconsidered, because if we incur additional operational costs, those would not be covered through the equipment financing through MFA. So I think we'd also have to reassess the funding of how these phases would be financed, because right now it's all coming through debt financing.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting rid of the speakers list here, but do I have a seconder for Director Ties' motion to look at option 2? Thank you. So I have that seconded. Director Seegers.
Thank you. On page 23F, bottom of the page, it does indicate that an estimated phased project cost would be $504,400. But given current market conditions and construction inflation, staff is not really confident in that, and they project that it could cost $750,000, which is more than if we do it all at once. And if we have to borrow to do that, the whole cost is $702,553. So personally, I'm not in favor of the phased approach. I talked about that this morning.
Thank you. Director Beamish.
Does the phased approach and the cost estimates for it include the comment recently from Jim Hall about the need for upgrade alarm system and the cost of that? Is that cost, or is that over and above the costs we see here?
For option 2.
For option 2.
Jim Hall?
Sorry, if I understood the question, does option 2 include the fire alarm work?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Beamish, any further questions or comments?
No, thank you. I'll take my hand down.
Okay. It's a tough one. It really is tough, and I appreciate staff doing the best they can to present us with at least some semblance of options here. I certainly hear the concerns around phasing this out and whether a number of 504,000 plus GST is even realistic by the time all is said and done. But I'm concerned that we only had one bidder, and $636,000 is a lot of money to shovel out the door to one bidder. So if we don't move forward with option 2, I think I'd be in favor of retendering. Director Seegers?
We still in the end have to have one contractor do the whole project. So this would just break it up into 3 pieces. But to one contractor.
Yeah, but we only received one response to the RFP. So
That's right.
Director Lee?
Am I expected to vote on this?
No, Director Lee. Voting for this is a weighted vote for areas B, D, E, F, District of Sechelt, SIGD, and Town of Gibsons.
Is that true at the board level?
I'm getting a nod from Sherry, from our corporate officer, and she's the one that provided me that
I just
information.
wanted to be sure that if I didn't vote, it was an automatic yes. So I'm good now.
Thank you, Director Lee. I don't see any other hands up on my speakers list, so I will call the question on the motion, which is to explore option 2 and retender. So all those in favor of option 2? Opposed? Okay, I believe that's carried.
Have that recorded, please.
You'd like that recorded, Director Hill,
Thank you.
as well? Okay. So that is carried. Okay. Moving back to our original agenda. Oh, Director Seegers.
Follow-up question then. I think we need to check back in with the fire department and see what the implications are going to be on facility closures. Thank you.
GM Hall.
Thank you. Yes, staff wanted to make that clear that we will do that to ensure that the facility remains safe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, moving back to our original agenda, Annex E, Item 6, request for exemption to SCRD noise bylaw number 597 for Jake's Construction Limited for work related to the Sechelt Airport paving project. Turn it over to the corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. This report is coming forward in response to a request for an exemption from the SCRD noise bylaw so that asphalt production may occur during quiet hours in order to meet a tight timeline to pave the runway at the Sechelt Airport. The exemption is for a limited time, up until June 18th. No noise complaints have been received to date at the SCRD, and the SCRD has published information on social media about the work taking place to support other notification efforts being made by the construction company.
Okay, thank you very much. Director McMahon?
Yeah, my question is, are the neighbors notified when this sort of thing happens? And I'm particularly thinking of the RV park at 1051 Gilmore, because they are the most directly impacted.
Corporate officer?
Yes, so in the letter, the construction company made note of distributing flyers through the neighborhoods on Keith Road, north of Cemetery Road, between Keith and Gilmore north of Cemetery Road.
All right, thank you. Director Seegers.
Thank you. And we requested that our staff, the District of Sechelt, notify everyone on Field Road, not just within 100 meters of the airport, but all of Field Road, because travel would, trucks would be going back and forth up Field Road.
Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Sherry. Yeah, picking up on the letter, it says we propose to deliver flyers 1 week before. Is the regional district involved in overseeing what the flyer looks like, or is it really up to the proponent to do the communication and the outreach? And if there is a flyer, would it be possible to have this even retrospectively come back to the board? It might not be the first time we're doing this, and it would be nice to see what this outreach does look to people. So oversight on the flyers, and can we get a copy of this in the future? Because it does seem to put the onus on the proponent to do what they say.
Thank you for the question. We have not looked at the flyer. To my knowledge, they have been distributed. I will reach out and get a copy of that for the board's information. And we can also support those communication efforts we can put out a media advisory, which is something I can check in with our communications manager if we want broader notice of this.
I actually received a Facebook notification from the SCRD Facebook page this morning that this notification was being undertaken. So it is already on our Facebook page as well.
Great.
So, all right. I don't see any other speakers on the speakers list. Director McMahon.
I thought I might make a motion. Move the recommendations on page 24.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded. Okay. And I don't see any other speakers, so I will call the question. All those in favor? All right. That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Looking at, we don't have any communications today. We do have a couple of motions here. So we do have a notice of motion regarding the Roberts Creek Advisory Planning Commission appointment. Director Ties, would you like to speak to this?
Excuse me. Yeah. I'd like to move those recommendations wherever they are. Just lost track.
Page 2 of our agenda cover.
Yeah. All right. Agenda cover. So I'd like to move those recommendations to add Eric to our APC, please.
Okay, and that is rural directors only. So do I have a seconder for that? I do have a seconder for that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Regarding number 8, notice of motion, Sechelt Public Library Board appointment from Chair Pratt. Chair Pratt's not here today, but I know that she is essentially looking to switch places with Director Lee. So, Director Lee, did you want to speak to the motion or make the motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
All right, and I see a seconder for that, and no other hands up for it. So, all those in favor of the motion? Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to Annex F. We do have bylaws today, and let's see if I can figure out how to read these all out properly and not mess it up too badly. Chair Pratt does such an excellent job of it. So we're looking for first and second reading today. So may I have a motion for first reading of Sunshine Coast Regional District Bylaw number 310.192, a bylaw to amend Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Bylaw number 310/1987. Moved. Seconded. And I just wanted to double check. This is electoral area directors. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And so looking for second reading of Sunshine Coast Regional District Bylaw number 310.192, a bylaw to amend Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Bylaw number 310/1987. Second reading, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Next up, director's reports. So let's start with Director Lee up in Area A.
Yeah, you knew I hadn't written it yet. Actually, I attended, I think yesterday, I attended the local residents association meeting, and I reported on our new structure of GMs and explained the good things that were going to happen because of it. And they were actually happy to hear it and quite interested to hear it. So I thought that was real cool. And I am quite looking forward to the UBCM and our chance to get to talk to ministers about these important issues that we have. And I think that's a good thing. And I was glad to see everybody was in agreement on the topics to discuss. So that's about all I have to report, but thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Director Lee. We don't have Chair Pratt with us today, so I will skip over Area B, and I will go to Director Seegers.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend the blanket ceremony at the mother and child statue at the Shuttle Nation in commemoration of the 215 children found in Kamloops. It was touching. It was very heartfelt, and there were a lot of people there. Very much spaced out, very, watching the protocols and stuff, the public health protocols, but it's a privilege to be invited to attend. And since then, I've had a lot of stories shared with me about the experiences of some of the local residents who were in some of the schools. And I've had others mention to me that some of their elders have been speaking and sharing stories that they had never shared before. So there's a lot of hurt going on, a lot of hurt and a lot of grieving going on in that community, and our hearts are with them. Along with Councillor Toth, Councillor McLean, I attended the Canadian Rural and Regional Housing and Homelessness Symposium. Some of the sessions I didn't find very good, but there was one session that we were all involved in. It was one of the keynote addresses on, I think it was the second day. Fellow from McGill University, he consults on development around the world. And he did his keynote address and he talked about sustainable communities first. And then he brought it down to sustainable neighborhoods, and then down to sustainable construction. And the way he put it together and brought a lot of the ideas that we've been talking about with examples really brought it to life and really showed how they integrated. So I requested the presentation because I think it would be a great presentation to be a communication starter in the community, because this is the direction we want to go. And he's laid a lot of this stuff out so we can take it out to the community and have those conversations, as well as within government. I've been working a lot over the last few weeks with the joint initiative that the District of Shuttle, the Shuttle Nation, and the Siyaya Reconciliation Movement are putting together. There's a report that's going to be coming forward on the District of Shuttle agenda next week with the outline of the projects that have been suggested to date. And we have 3 sponsors right now, because each project needs its own sponsor. We have 3 sponsors and 1 more potentially coming. I'm going to mention one now because the others haven't formally indicated that. But the Rotary Club of Shuttle, I believe it is, have taken on to be the sponsor for the gazebo on the pier. So applications are being put together right now. We're applying June 25th for the Canada Healthy Communities grants for a number of projects. So we'll have more details coming forward in the next week or 2. Local government show. We attended the local government show last week, Thursday. It's the last one before October. So we're hoping that by October we can be back in person, but we're not sure. So we're getting pretty good at doing the Zoom government show. Minister Osborne is following through every month with a meeting with all of the mayors and chairs in the province. So they break us up, I think, into 5 different groups. And then we have a meeting, hour and a half, and she'll typically bring somebody else along with her. So the last meeting was with Dr. Brian Emerson. He was the Deputy Public Health Officer. And this meeting was just after the announcements of the stages that they're going to be going through. And so they wanted to see if there were any questions. One of the things that they indicated then was at that time, we were already at 72% vaccinated. So every one of the stages has a number of conditions that have to be in place before we can move to the next stage. It is based on percentage of vaccination, percentage of people who are currently battling the virus, and number of hospitalizations. So those 3 are what they look at before they will move on to the next stage. I had the opportunity to attend the Air Cadets annual ceremonial review. They've been operating for the last year virtually, but they've done dinner parties online. They've done all kinds of different things. And what they really indicated was, even though everything's been online, their attendance has been through the roof, and they've achieved a lot of milestones. So it was really good. That means that the parent volunteers for that group have really put in a lot of effort as well. They did things like scavenger hunts in their house, right? So you get a list and you have to do a scavenger hunt in your own house to find stuff. So it was quite good. Sunshine Coast Community Forest had their AGM, and now they've had their inaugural meeting, and we have a new chair and vice chair. The chair of the community forest is Kathleen Sudis, and the vice chair is David King. So they will be going through a strategic review in the next while. Watch upcoming, there is going to be a coastwide food bank drive. So watch for that. It should be coming out in the next week or so. They're looking at, all 4 food banks have gotten together again. They did this last year. They're going together again to raise funds, which will then be distributed up and down the coast. The airport the expansion project is moving ahead. And as word has been getting out about the expansion happening, we are getting lots of inquiries about hangars. We've actually had one fellow come forward, from what I understand, who is looking to build 24 hangars up at our airport, because the extended runway actually provides additional business opportunities. So we're looking forward to that. And then on Wednesday, yesterday, we, at our committee of the whole, we chose the site for the Sani station that we've been given funds for from the province. And the site we've chosen is at our new public works yard. So that will be moving forward as well in the next while. That's all I have to report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Seegers. I think the only thing that I have to add to that was that since the last board meeting, we attended AVICC, and it was okay. It was a one-day AGM, and they did the night or the evening before as a social gathering thing, and I spent most of my time in one room that literally had a live stream feed of a bunch of piglets in a blueberry patch, because it was nice and relaxing, and I got to talk to our MLA and some members of government in other communities. So it's just not quite the same. It's not quite the same as being in a room together and being able to talk about your issues and go off to the side to have a conversation. So looking forward to eventually doing these things in person again. I know that UBCM will be virtual again this year, and that the minister meetings are all going to be done over telephone again this year, which is unfortunate because you don't know who's in the room. You can't see their faces. You don't know how they're responding to the things you have to say. You don't even know if they're paying attention to you. So really discouraging, but I don't know that the provincial government necessarily has any other system in place to use, because I know that's the way VCH works. I know that's the way that the regular ministry updates come through, is all by telephone. So maybe one day our provincial government will get into the 21st century. But moving on up the coast, Director Ties.
Up the coast, down the coast, I guess whichever way you look at it. Not much to add there. I also attended the Friday morning sessions of the AVICC conference, and nothing huge to report. I do agree that this kind of thing is best done in person. And since we had voted 3 days before, there wasn't really much reason to hang around. I'd like to, just mention the residential school tragedy in Kamloops. And when I taught at the Native Education College, one of my students was actually from that area, and he only escaped from being in that residential school by hiding out in the woods when the green van came to go and pick him up. I put together a project change course for them, where they went to 2 elementary school classes presented how the residential school system affected them, even though none of them had been to a residential school, but how it affected them and their families. So this kind of was a stark reminder of that presentation that left at least the teachers in the elementary school teachers in tears when we did the presentation. And there's a lot of grief out there. And so I wanted to acknowledge that. And my heart broke for all those people that saw their children get taken away from them and then to never return. And then not even acknowledge that that child even existed. It's awful. So thank you to staff for doing the strategic plan review sessions on Tuesday and Monday and Tuesday. Very informative and certainly gives us a good realistic grounding going into our strategic plan review next week, and I'm looking forward to that. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ties. Director McMahon?
Yes, in reference to Director Seeger's remarks, every day in my house is a scavenger hunt day. Where are those other glasses? Where did I put, yes, the agenda? Okay, AVICC. Yes, we are seeing the shortcomings of online conferences. It feels very one way. The thing that we really need in these conferences is the availability to go off into little Zoom rooms and chat with each other. We did this informally, but that's a huge part of a conference. And when you spend all day with people just talking at you and there's nothing you can do, you're not voting, they didn't even do polls, you know, you just get worn out. It's very, very difficult to maintain focus. The talking of two-way communication, or at least more communication, the seashell ceremony about residential schools was videotaped and shared on Facebook. And I think that was really helpful because, I mean, the main reason originally was because they didn't want to get too big a crowd there because of COVID restrictions, but not everybody can attend important community events. So I think we need to make more of an effort going forward to videotape these things. We've had the technology for ages. We just haven't really implemented it very much and very often. And it helps us be more inclusive. There's also times that people don't necessarily want to come out in person for various reasons, for personal reasons, or they're not comfortable or whatever. And this is a big part of the outreach that we need to be doing. Let me see. There have been tons and tons of people getting in touch with me because there is so much development going on. I have a new neighborhood association, the Georgia Crest Neighborhood Association, just formed on May the 30th. They're pretty busy. I attended the Elphinstone Community Association last night, and the guest speaker was Patrick Weiler, and he was great, and there were lots of questions, which was also great because then I didn't have to do much reporting because all the time got used up by someone else, which is nice. Yeah, Go by Bike Week was pretty easy this year because I didn't have to go to the SCRD, thank heavens. So that's about it. I am looking forward to strategic planning tomorrow. I really appreciated the workshops we've had so far. They've been tremendously informative. And so I look forward to it with enthusiasm and some trepidation.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Moving on to Gibson's, Director Beamish.
Thank you. A couple of repetitive things. I'll expand a little bit on the food bank drive. It's been part of the role of the Sunshine Coast Foundation this year is going to be participate in that, where you can either make a donation to an endowment for the food bank or flow through funds to the food bank, and you can designate which food bank you want your funds to go to. The endowment will be ongoing so that they will have sustainability. Once it reaches a certain size, you have a lot of annual revenue come in, and that's very useful. So that's going to be starting shortly. I just learned today that I've been invited to participate to make a presentation to the Special Committee on Police Act Review, and that's going to happen on June 29th. And there's 3 small communities in the province who are going to be making presentations that same day. So I look forward to that. And some of the issues that we identified was simply that transition from small community to 5,000 population, opioid crisis, and mental health issues and mental health enforcement by RCMP. So those, I'll be focusing on those, but I will go online and see what the other community issues are so I can see where we blend. We are going to be discussing on Tuesday the UBCM appointments that our council wishes to look at as well. So I would appreciate if we could see that list that we discussed earlier the week for appointments at UBCM, because I think it's very important that where we see those overlaps, and we will share our list and make sure we have that coverage for the Team Sunshine Coast. I also attended a blanket ceremony along with Councillor Kroll and a couple of our staff from the office. Very moving event, and we acknowledged it as well through our council for that week. We have appointed a tree bylaw committee. The tree bylaw that we have has been in place now for over 6 months, so we've actually appointed a committee. There's a lot of interest in it, so we didn't know where to stop. So everybody who applied got appointed. So we have 9 people appointed to that committee, so it'll be interesting to see what comes forward from that. On Tuesday night next week, we'll be saying goodbye to our senior youth counselor, Gravity, and she's been there now. This is completing her 2nd year. The first year was the alternate, and this year was as a youth counselor, she will be making a presentation herself on the experience. So if you have a chance to take that in and just see how the youth counselors feel. That was one of the things that came through also from the AVICC conference, was the role of youth and the voice of youth needing to be recognized by local governments, and how to better do that. Iced tea, we had an iced tea meeting on Friday. One of the takeaways I took from that was the Thrive program. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I think if you go online, I think there's another presentation coming up, possibly next week. Lynn is going to be making a 3rd presentation now on Thrive. Really good opportunities to revitalize in the downtown core. It's intended to be interactive activities. Focused around art or cultural activities, and they have some excellent examples from other communities elsewhere. And we'll take a look at that. I actually invited our public arts committee to sit in, and Stuart Stinson from the art gallery did sit in. The only problem I see with the program is that it is open to local governments and not-for-profits. Organizations in a community. There's no requirement for coordination. In other words, as a local government, we can be putting in an application and not knowing as well that the Rotary Club has put in an application, and the art gallery has put in an application, and the public markets put in an application. So that I see a bit of a weakness, because there was no kind of coordination there required. So that being said, I'm sure we will have an application for the September 19th intake. It is open to regional districts as well, so you might want to take a look at that and see how your area of the regional district might benefit from that. Up to $50,000, 100% funding for a project, so that we are going to, I'm sure we'll work on a project. And AVICC, although challenging, I spent my day there and listening to presentations, and I was moved by a couple of them, and especially moved by the fellow who pushed a shopping cart across Canada for the homeless. And his story and his action spoke tremendously to me as things that we should be doing and paying attention to. So not looking forward to another meeting. And maybe by the time UBCM comes along, who knows? Maybe they'll open it up somewhat. I'll see what we can do. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Beamish. Just before we move on to Director Hiltz, I did have one quick question for you. Your tree bylaw committee, what's their purpose? Are they sort of just reviewing the bylaw and its effectiveness and things that might need to change, or?
Yeah, that's primarily what it is. We put the bylaw in last year. We did give a process. A lot of people say we didn't have process, but we actually gave it first and second reading, let it sit there for 3 months, had a public hearing on it, put information out on it, and then implemented it. And so now we're just kind of dealing with what works and what doesn't work and see what adjustments need to be done. And that's why we put that to a committee.
Great, thank you. And finally, we've got Director Hiltz, Area F.
Area F, yes, thanks, Chair. BC Library Trustees Association held a workshop, which I attended along with some members of the GDPL board. The title was So You Want a New Library? And it was hosted by Andy Ackerman, who is of Myriad Consulting. He's from Fort St. John, and he presented a model for building libraries. And one of the things that he was kind of focusing on is that libraries are more than just a cultural and aspects of our community, and that they have an economic development aspect of our community, and encouraging people to think about the broader context of libraries in terms of how just the traffic through the door as it's a high traffic area, and how that could be combined with other services in a community. And he did note that libraries are one of those institutions that have an infrastructure deficit, and a report maybe 10 years ago, he said, listed a national Canadian infrastructure deficit of some $1 billion for libraries. So join the club of infrastructure deficit. Libraries are also in that. June 7th was the launch of what's called the MERG, or the Marine Reference Guide for all cats and House Sound. It was in coordination with World Oceans Day on the 8th, and MERG is concluding their 3-year project by December of 2021. It's a resource that is to support decision makers around the marine environment of Howe Sound. What's going to happen to it in the future, I'm not exactly sure, but it's I think nearly $500,000 has been spent to gather and assemble this data, and now it's somehow going to get turned over to an entity to maintain this into the future, which is phase 2, which we're entering into this year. And then Elphinstone Community Association, terrific meeting, actually. It was a bit of a joint venture between the West Howe Sound Community Meeting and Elphinstone. And with Patrick Weiler, they kind of agreed that we wouldn't try to pull them in 2 different directions. So it was all with the ECA. And one of the things that Patrick mentioned was it's a $640 million federal initiative for salmon strategy enhancement program for wild salmon. And it almost seems like there's an intersection between stormwater management of local governments, which is where the fresh water comes from, and then it goes down the hill towards the marine environment, which is where the wild salmon are. So it almost seems like that there's an intersection between a federal initiative or interest and local government, and salmon are the key. It was interesting to hear about this, and whether there might be an avenue for local governments and stormwater to venture into this wild salmon habitat aspect of the money coming from the federal government. And one of the things that Patrick did mention is, which was touched on with reference to the Kamloops, is that Canada has long overdue difficult conversations that we have not had, and we're really just kind of getting going into them. And so I just say I have to really, thanks to the ECA and Patrick. He was able to take the questions, gave great answer, engaged for over an hour, and they finally let him go because he was up since 7 o'clock in the morning, zooming across the nation. And so thanks to the ECA and Director McMahon for bringing that to my attention. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Director Seegers, I see your hand up.
Given that we were talking about the blanket ceremony, and one of the comments that former Chief Feschuk mentioned at the end was about the day scholars. And I think some of you may have noticed that the federal government has now settled the day scholar, whatever it's called, day scholar issue. I don't know. So that's been settled anyway. So that's good.
All right, thank you. That concludes our board reports, our director's reports. So moving on in our agenda, we have no new business and we have no in-camera session. So I look for a motion to adjourn our board meeting. Moved? Seconded? All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from our gallery today or anything that's been emailed in? Okay, we've received no emails. So if you are an attendee and you want to ask a question, you need to raise your virtual hand. I will allow Carolyn White to talk. Go ahead. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Oh, hello. I have someone here who would like to speak. Excuse me. This is Anne Clements.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody there. I'm a resident of Pender Harbour, and I'm very concerned about the TELUS tower that is proposed to be built at the Irish Griffith Centre. I actually was the president of the Wildlife Club at the time, and I had the honour of laying this, or whatever you do when you dig a hole in the ground where the building is going to be. And I've watched the progress of it ever since, until it blossomed into this wonderful centre for education. Young people love it because they're taken for walks in the woods to learn about the natural surroundings. And there's a pond. Most of you probably have been there, right? You're all nodding, or most of you are nodding. So anyway, we were told that we first heard that the TELUS company was going to put this tower on as a neighbor, and we put up as much opposition as we could. And we heard that it had been cancelled and that they had chosen another site. So then, short time ago, maybe a week and a half, we heard that our site was again the chosen place for the tower to go. And we were absolutely devastated because we were just over the moon knowing that it had not been selected. Now it has been selected, and we would like to say that there was opposition before for the first time around. That opposition is still very strong, and we would like to ask if that side wasn't represented when it was proposed today.
Thank you for your question. I know that TELUS is required to take into account community feedback. I know that this has been to the area AAPC. I'm going to look to Director Lee as the area director. Do you have any comments or anything to bring up from the area AAPC or for the community?
I had attended all the APC meetings when the presentations were made. I had never heard that the original Ruby Lake site was canceled. This is something new. I'm not sure how that. Well, first of all, hi, Anne.
Hi there. Good to
Hi.
see you.
It's good to hear you here. I don't know how that message got out there. I was wondering if maybe Doug from TELUS could comment on it. I notice he's in the audience.
Hello,
I have a letter here that was sent to the SCRD committee and board from the Wildlife Society, dated June the 7th. And it was sent to the SCRD. And I would like to ask if you received it, because we have not had any reply.
Corporate Officer.
I can confirm that that letter arrived yesterday late afternoon. It has yet to be circulated. We've just received it.
Okay, so long as it's going to be circulated, and you would draw the conclusion that it is not a happy situation for the Outer Griffith Centre.
Okay, thank you. We do have Doug Anastos with TELUS here in the gallery with us. I don't know if Doug would like to speak to any of this.
Hi, Chair Toth. Thank you. And thank you to the board as well. Doug Anastas here from TELUS, as you'd mentioned. I work on the wireless team, and I've been representing TELUS for the work here on the coast. Quite a bit of work, as everyone knows. I've attended quite a few of these board meetings. And yeah, to respond to the question, the concern. So, TELUS, going back to the beginning of this process, we have been trying to find, as an acceptable location as we can in the community for this infrastructure. We started our first consultation earlier in this year at the Iris Griffith Centre, and there was some, opposition, as noted, as Ms. Clements, you noted there. And then we also, following that, went through the APC meeting where that opposition was also voiced in that venue as well. And and as a result of that, we started to take a look at maybe some other options in the community for another second site, an alternative site. And it was always our intention, in the public process there to have those two sites run parallel. And we did go back to the APC to make that clear, that there were two possible sites that would work, for our network needs, and those were the two candidate sites that we would be, proceeding to the board with at the end of the process to request concurrence for. And so that process led us to, I suppose, the last meeting where we did request concurrence for those two sites. So, it sounds like there's been some miscommunication. It was always our intent to have those two options to the community. But I would be happy to follow up further with you, Ms. Clements, if you'd like to chat. I'm always happy to speak with members of the community further about these matters.
Well, I'm not going to comment because we did write all the facts down, the opposition, and it's not just people on the peninsula here, we get people from all over, from abroad and the whole of the States, and we've had visitors from the ends of the earth coming on their way, looking around this country and coming in for visits and being quite impressed. So we do represent them too, because they I'm sure would agree that they enjoyed their visit and thought it was a beautiful place. And there's no way that they would agree that slapping a great big tower on as a neighbor right next door is such a brilliant idea.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We will see your correspondence. This is just one part of the process that TELUS has to go through. As has been pointed out in the past, they are a federally regulated industry, so we are but one step in their process. So.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and we would appreciate it if you give it your full consideration.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Then everybody have a good afternoon, evening at the almost evening. Bye now.
See you tomorrow.